Hello, I'm Norbert Gleicher, MD, and I'm the Medical Director and Chief Scientist here at the Center for Human Reproduction. I would like to talk to you today about our second opinion program, which we consider to be rather unique. It's really unique for quite a number of reasons, because it gives you an opportunity to find out how we here at CHR look at what has been happening in your treatment without committing to a major consultation or to even switching to our center. It's a very easy process. You basically complete a questionnaire that gives us the minimum detailed information that we require to be able to give you a valuable second opinion. You can send us also some of your medical records if you feel that is appropriate, and then one of our physicians will go through all of those materials, will summarize your case, and will give you a written summary of what our opinion is about what we may know as of that point. Now, it is very important for you to understand that such a second opinion obviously has some limitations, and those limitations are that we can only achieve a tentative diagnosis, which in most cases, practically in all cases, then needs to be confirmed. We reach a diagnosis based on your history, some of your old laboratory data, etc. But in most cases there's something missing, and in most cases, therefore, we have to either talk to you to get some additional information, or even more frequently, we have to send you to a laboratory for some additional testing. And therefore, we in our program offer also a package which automatically gives you access for a significantly reduced fee to what's called follow-up consultation with myself or another physician here at CHR. When should you consider a second opinion from CHR? Over 90% of patients who come to us, whether it is for a second opinion or for a real first consultation, come to us after they have already been elsewhere in treatment. In other words, most patients who come to us as new entries have had prior treatment experiences. And that means that you already have test results, that you probably already have gone through treatment cycles, whether they were insemination cycles or IVF cycles. And that is all important information that we obviously need to get in order to give you an opinion. Because our opinions are not only directed at what is your underlying problem, but also if there was prior treatment, do we agree with the kind of treatment that you received? Or maybe a better way of putting it is the way how we treat the condition the same here at CHR as it is elsewhere where you may have received treatments? And very frequently it is not, and then we will lay out what the differences are. So point number one is, if you have been somewhere else in treatment and have not been successful, that's an appropriate time to consult us. That over 90% of patients fall into this category does not mean that we are not open to consultations when you first decide that you need infertility help. Very much to the contrary. We strongly encourage such consultations because CHR has built a very reputable following all over the world over many, many years as being a center of last resort where you can still achieve very excellent results even if you have failed in many other places. But we very frequently wonder what would have happened, how much more successful we could have been had we seen those patients 2-3 years earlier while they were undergoing treatments elsewhere. So we welcome patients at the beginning of their fertility journey, and in many cases we feel that there we have even more to offer than many years later. When we receive your questionnaire that you have completed, we very carefully review it. Therefore, it is really important that you address all the questions we are asking in this questionnaire, because every diagnosis is based on information, and if we do not have enough detailed information, we will in our report have to tell you that here and there information is missing, and that obviously means that there needs to be more follow-up. Who are most of the patients who are currently requesting second opinions? Clearly, most patients are those who have become frustrated by unsuccessful attempts at conception at other centers. But that can have many different reasons. And it is important for you to understand what we can and cannot do in a second opinion. In a second opinion, we, in most cases, very clearly can either confirm or reject or come up with a new diagnosis. So either we can confirm your old diagnosis, or we can conclude that that is likely not the diagnosis, and very often, simply from your history, we may be able to tell you what we really think your diagnosis might be. But it is again important to understand that a diagnosis made in that way is always tentative, because we do not reach diagnosis based on what we feel or what we believe. We reach diagnosis based on facts. We reach our diagnosis based on objective laboratory results or other findings. And that needs to be obtained, and very frequently at the time of the initial second opinion consultation is obviously not available, and therefore the need for a follow-up consultation. The follow-up consultations are again quite detailed consultations where we again go over your whole history, but in addition really drill into the issues that we in our initial second opinion consultation considered to be the essential questions. And in those cases, again, we re-emphasize the need that you have available your materials. Many of our patients have that stack of medical records at home and simply cannot send us everything, but it is important that you have it at least available during the follow-up consultation in case questions come up. Once you have had a follow-up consultation, then it is obviously up to do what you do with all the information that you received from the initial second opinion consultation and the follow-up consultation. Your choice is becoming formally a patient here at CHR. Many patients, indeed the majority of patients, are not local patients here at CHR. The majority of our patients are what we call long-distance patients, pretty evenly split between patients who come to us from the rest of the United States and patients who come to us from outside the United States, including many from Canada, obviously. If you want to become a patient of ours, you then have, again, two options. We can, on a long-distance basis, obviously determine your diagnosis in detail. We can make a treatment plan, but then the treatment plan needs to be executed, and that always raises the question whether you want to come for your treatment, usually an IVF cycle, for the whole length to us in New York City, which is obviously our preferred option, or whether you want to start your cycle locally, which most of our long-distance patients choose because they obviously don't have the time or other possibilities to spend up to 2 weeks in New York City. And so many of our patients will start locally with colleagues with whom we have arrangements made for monitoring of our patients under our protocols. And then shortly before your egg retrieval, you come to New York and you spend usually about 4 days here, because most of our patients are transferred relatively early. In other words, it is quite rare that in those more difficult cases we culture embryos to blastocyst stage, and therefore your stay in New York City is usually just required for about 4 to 5 days maximum under those circumstances. Patients who have fertility problems and cannot get them resolved where they live very frequently travel. This is actually a relatively new movement in our field, but fertility tourism is quickly increasing, and not only in the US. It is very, very popular in Europe, maybe even more popular than in the US, because in Europe different countries have different legal situations in terms of what is and is not allowed in IVF cycles and in other infertility treatments. And so patients very frequently travel since they simply cannot get treatments in their own countries. For example, in some Scandinavian countries, there's an age limit on up to what age a woman can be treated with IVF. In some countries 41, in other countries 42. After that age, it is almost impossible to get an IVF cycle done, and these women, who we still consider very young, have simply no choice but to travel. Many travel elsewhere in Europe, some come to us here in New York City. So this is a quick summary of our second opinion program, which gives you an opportunity to get our opinion. It does not mean a commitment on your part. It obviously doesn't mean a commitment on our part. And I would like to conclude by making one additional point. Our most important goal is your success as a patient. And whether you achieve that goal locally, wherever you live, in the US or overseas, or here in New York with us, is of really secondary importance. If you, for whatever reason, choose not to come to New York and work directly with us, we will gladly pass on to your physician what our opinions are. And we do that free of charge. We do it free of charge because we consider it a professional courtesy, vice versa, our colleagues who are treating you. But we cannot interfere in treatments of other centers. In other words, just as we do not want that other colleagues interfere in how we treat patients, we are very certain that they don't want us to interfere in how they treat their patients. So we will gladly speak to your physicians, we will gladly write to them and send them summary notes with recommendations, but we cannot tell them how to treat you. Every IVF center has their way of doing things, and if you receive treatments elsewhere, it will be very likely the treatment that those centers usually provide. What makes our center different from most other centers is the individualization of care. And while we can recommend that, we cannot make other centers change how they practice. I hope that this information helps you in making your decisions where and how to get your treatments. If you have any further questions, you can always reach us here at the CHR. We will be gladly answering all of them.